I'm Sophia, 25. And I grew up in a small town, where everyone seemed to know everyone's life. People would smile and nod at each other on the streets, and nothing stayed hidden for long. From a young age, I realized that appearances meant more than feelings. Everyone admired perfection, but no one saw the cracks inside. My childhood was filled with simple joys, running barefoot through the fields, collecting wildflowers, and dreaming of fairy tale love stories I read in old books. I remember the first time I felt my heart flutter for someone. His name was Daniel, a boy from my neighborhood. I thought I was in love. I wrote little notes and hid them in my diary, imagining he might read them someday. But love, as I quickly learned, can be fragile. Daniel moved away, and with him went my first heartbeat of longing. I was left with an ache I couldn't explain. A quiet lesson that life sometimes takes away what you want most. That early heartbreak shaped the way I approached feelings for the rest of my life. I became careful, observant, protective of my own heart, because I never wanted to feel that emptiness again. Growing up, my family's voice always echoed in my mind. Find someone suitable, someone reliable. Love can come later, but stability is everything. These words, repeated like a mantra, became part of me. I tried to imagine what a life of stability without love would look like, convincing myself that perhaps it was enough. My parents and relatives would plan my future in their minds long before I had a say. Every dinner conversation included suggestions of husbands, careers, and proper social conduct. I nodded politely, listened attentively, and even smiled at some of their ideas. But deep inside, I felt a quiet rebellion stirring. I wanted to choose for myself, yet the invisible pressure of expectations held me firmly in place. I learned early how to hide my true feelings. I became an actress in my own life, performing joy and gratitude for the world while silently questioning whether my own desires mattered at all. And through it all, I carried a secret hope that someday, somehow, I would find a way to balance obedience with my own heart's longing. Then came James. He was everything the world admired: handsome, confident, articulate, and seemingly perfect. From the moment I met him at a formal gathering, I felt eyes on us. People whispered compliments and admiration. But my heart felt nothing. James smiled, extending his hand, and I shook it, feeling an unexpected chill run through me. Everyone around us seemed enchanted by him, and I began to see myself through their eyes. Someone lucky, someone chosen. But inside, a quiet voice whispered, "This isn't love." The proposal arrived unexpectedly. One rainy evening, under twinkling lights, James knelt and asked me to marry him. The world cheered, my family clapped, my friends smiled, and the air buzzed with excitement. I wanted to say no. Every fiber of me wanted to scream it out, yet my lips refused. I thought of safety, of approval, of the life mapped out for me. I said yes. That simple word, yes, would echo through every day of my future. And even as I smiled, I knew deep down that life had just changed forever, though I had no idea how much. That night, as I lay in my room alone, I realized something unsettling. I had made a decision, not with my heart, but with everything else around it, and that decision would shape every beat of my life to come. The weeks leading up to our wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Dresses, flowers, invitations, and endless rehearsals consumed my days. Each morning, I woke up feeling both excitement and an undercurrent of dread. I smiled at the mirror, practicing the joy that everyone expected to see, while deep inside, I felt hollow. My family fussed over every detail, ensuring that the wedding would be flawless. I nodded and agreed to everything, but each bow tied, each seating plan finalized, reminded me of the life I was committing to without truly choosing it. James seemed calm and collected, excited for the celebration, unaware of the storm brewing quietly in my heart. Some nights, I would sit alone by the window, listening to the rain patter softly against the glass. I wondered if I was making a mistake, but the thought of disappointing my family or facing their judgment kept my lips sealed. Every laugh I practiced, every gesture I perfected, was a mask to hide the fear and uncertainty gnawing at me. The morning of the wedding arrived, with the sun peeking through the clouds, casting a warm glow on the world outside. I put on my dress, feeling the weight of fabric and expectation on my shoulders. As I stepped in front of the mirror, I barely recognized the reflection staring back at me, a bride, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Walking down the aisle, every eye was on me. The music played, people cheered, cameras flashed, and yet I felt detached, as though I were floating above it all, watching from a distance. James looked radiant, every movement graceful and confident. I wanted to feel joy, relief, love, even, but my chest felt empty. I was performing perfection, not living it. When we exchanged vows, my voice wavered, not from emotion, but from the weight of the decision I had made. Everyone clapped, everyone smiled, but inside, I felt a quiet panic. I realized then, more clearly than ever, that I had married not for love, but for everything else. The safety, the expectations, the approval of others, and with that realization came a lingering fear. Had I doomed myself to a life of quiet loneliness? That night, after the celebrations ended, I followed James into our bedroom. The house was silent, the lights dimmed, and the air heavy with anticipation. I lay beside him, expecting connection, warmth, perhaps even happiness, but there was only silence. A thick, suffocating silence that seemed to stretch endlessly. James slept peacefully, unaware of the tempest inside me. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about every choice that had led me here, the obedience, the compromise, the fear of disappointing my family. I realized that love, as I had imagined it, had never been part of this plan. The next days settled into a routine: breakfast, work, polite conversation, dinners. We coexisted without conflict, without passion, without laughter that reached the soul. I smiled when I had to, nodded when I had to, but my heart quietly retreated further with each passing day. I began to notice things about James I hadn't before: the way he laughed, the way he frowned, the subtle mannerisms that no one else would see. I observed him carefully, as one studies a puzzle, and yet the closer I looked, the more distant he seemed. My heart longed for something, anyone, but it was trapped behind walls I had built for survival. Every night, I lay awake whispering to myself, is this truly life? Is this all I meant to know? The questions remained unanswered, and yet the spark of rebellion in my heart grew. I knew, even then, that my story had just begun, and that the days ahead would force me to confront truths I was not yet ready to face. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Each morning, I woke up, made breakfast, and went through the motions of life, as if it were a script written by someone else. James followed his routine, polite and precise, while I drifted through hours, like a ghost, in my own home. The silence between us was heavy, almost tangible, filling every corner of the house with a quiet tension. I tried talking to him sometimes, asking about his day, his thoughts, his dreams, but his answers were always brief, careful, measured, and I learned quickly that there were some walls I could not penetrate. I felt invisible, trapped in a life that looked perfect to everyone else. It felt like a cage to me. I spent my evenings sitting by the window, staring at the rain, thinking about what I had given up for comfort and approval. My heart longed for warmth, connection, love, but every time I reached for it, I was reminded that I had chosen safety over feeling, predictability over passion, and yet a small spark of hope remained, whispering that life could still surprise me if I dared to break my silence. Then came the first real crack in our carefully constructed life. It was a minor argument over something trivial, a misplaced item, a forgotten message, but it escalated quickly. For the first time, James raised his voice, and I felt a jolt of fear mixed with curiosity. The silence was broken, but not in the way I had imagined. I realized then that, beneath his composed exterior, James had tempers, desires, and flaws I had never imagined, and beneath my own polite compliance, I had fears, hopes, and longings that I had never admitted to anyone, not even myself. The argument ended without resolution, but the tension lingered. I began questioning everything: my choices, my feelings, my courage to confront the truth. Every day after, I noticed small moments. The way he glanced at me when he thought I wasn't looking, the way he sighed when no one was near. I observed him carefully, and in doing so, I began to see myself more clearly. The walls I had built around my heart started to tremble. I wanted something I couldn't name, and the fear of admitting it grew heavier with each passing day. One night, I found myself standing alone in the living room, the house dark except for the soft glow of the streetlights through the window. I whispered to myself, "Am I trapped in a life I never chose, or is this just the beginning of discovering who I really am?" The question echoed in the silence, unanswered, haunting, yet oddly liberating. In that quiet moment, I realized that my story was far from over. The decisions I had made, the silence I had kept, and the fear I had carried, all of it was leading to something I couldn't yet see. Something that would change my life in ways I never imagined. I didn't know what the next day would bring, but I knew one thing for certain: my heart would no longer stay hidden. Something had awakened inside me, a spark, a whisper, a promise that life had more in store than I had allowed myself to believe. And so, as I turned off the lights and prepared to face another day in my marriage without love, I held on to that whisper, clinging to the fragile hope that one day everything would change. If you think this is the end of the story, think again. Level 4 will reveal secrets and choices that will shake my life to its core.